I'm Bill Ryan, and I'm the author of the serpo.org website, which went online in the middle of November 2005. And one of the features of the website was a contact form in which I encouraged visitors to the website to contact me with any information, comments, thoughts, questions that they might want to have. And of course my original intention was to encourage a dialogue about Serpo itself, but right from the start I was aware of the possibility that people might get in touch to talk about anything else, which of course I welcomed. And one such here is a man who I'm talking to. It's a very great pleasure. I'm not going to identify him for obvious reasons, and he has a very interesting story to tell about his personal interaction with relics and documents and artifacts and films from a whole series of alien encounters, starting off with Roswell in 1947. And it became very clear that after this man contacted me just saying that he had an interesting story to tell and told me one or two little details about that, I picked up that bull, recognizing that there's something here of some considerable importance. This has got nothing to do with the Serpo story, but it should be something that's of considerable interest to every serious student of biology. And I wonder if I could just ask you to summarize your story just in a couple of sentences, just so the viewers here will get an idea of why it was that I immediately seized on what you had to say.
Well, I had my original contact had been that I had seen nothing in my experience that had to do with the Serpo story, but that I had other information. And what that information was that I spent 6 months at an aerospace company. I'm not a military person. I never was in the military. I spent 6 months archiving and filing artifacts, videos, films, pictures, and documents having to do with the government's involvement in UFO projects, research, and that sort of stuff.
And this was in which year? In the 1980s?
Yeah, 84, 85.
All right. And what did your job exactly entail, and what kind of material did you find yourself holding in your hands during that time?
Well, I was pretty much a file clerk with a security clearance. And I was brought items each day, and sometimes they were to be divided up into different branches of service. Sometimes they were to be divided up in classifications. Sometimes they were to be divided up as to what the content was inside them. Most of them were sealed. There were artifacts from crash ships. There were discs from crash ships. There were mostly pictures and documents from the U.S. government and all branches of the government, and also from aerospace companies.
Tell us what kinds of stamps these documents contain.
Stamps, classification stamps, top secret, secret eyes only, secret code word. A lot of them were only to be opened by authorized personnel. I mean, I worked in documentation, so I knew the markings on documents, and I knew what I should have been able to see, and in my regular line of work, and what, things that were marked incorrectly, I had to mark also correctly. So I was involved in that stuff in my work. Military that were not marked with any classifications whatsoever, which to me was kind of odd, but that's the way part of them were. They were just sealed envelopes with no markings whatsoever.
And what caught your eye the first time you came across this information that actually sort of turned your head?
It is something that I had believed in for quite a long time, and actually see proof to me was probably one of the best things that has ever happened to me. That's the way I felt about it.
I can really imagine this. And since you started to come out with this information, one or two people have called you Roswell man. Is this just because of, I mean, was this material just from the Roswell crash, or was it from other, let's say, interactions and time periods also?
Oh yeah, it was material for the lack of, the quest for, and gathering of knowledge to do with extraterrestrials and vehicle crashes and recoveries and equipment recovery and stuff, all kinds of stuff.
So in fact it was a whole cross-section of government-alien interaction between 1947 and the early 80s.
Present day, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Now you mentioned that you noticed there were a number of crashes, and you actually told us a number. Can you tell me what was that number of crashes that's happened over the years?
Over 50.
On American soil?
American and abroad.
Have any idea of the number of different alien species that were involved in these crashes?
No, that's knowledge that I can't remember or can't recall, but I do remember coming across at least 5 different types.
And did you see photographs of these beings?
I think 4 I did, 4 different kinds.
Photographs of 4 different beings.
And could you describe them?
Well, there was, my favorites always were the tall orange ones, which in documentation it was stated that they were the creators of what we call the grays, the common gray aliens with the kind of the pointed chin. The orange ones were taller, thinner, had a more round face, but still had the large eyes. Those were the 2 most prevalent. There was also another race that were almost like the grays, but maybe a little bit more pale and a little bit more stocky, but the same type of size. Like almost cousins to grays, almost. And then there was talking beings that looked just like you and I, only had light skin, sort of like Mr. Rain here with the blue eyes and lighter hair. Those were the ones that, from what I've been reading on the internet, and I never read documentation of this, that offered to save us if we disarmed our nuclear weapons and that sort of thing.
Okay. But you never saw any documentation?
No, I did not.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Was there documentation about the purpose behind the visitors? In other words, why they were here?
Yes, there was. It had to do with them fearing our nuclear capabilities and both destroying ourselves and maybe other species out in space, because we were getting awful close to space travel at that time.
And was this a hypothesis from the government, or was this something that you read in the documentation as something that was definitively known?
This was definitively known through contact.
Did they explain how they communicated?
Most of it was telepathic.
Telepathic?
Yeah.
Did they reference remote viewing, or how the humans were conducting that?
Correct. In being to human telepathically, where they could sit there across like you and I are sitting, and I would just have to look at you and you'd know what I want, and we'd be communicating through our minds, that sort of stuff.
Did you have any kind of any sense of how many of those beings were, let's say, active guests of the American government in such a way that communication was possible? Was it just 1 or 2?
5 to 10, but as far as my knowledge, I think in my opinion, there was way more.
Okay.
Your documentation reflected 5 or 10?
Looking at documents was evidence of 5 to 10.
Okay. What else did these aliens reveal about themselves in this ongoing dialogue with the American government? That we are descendants of them, that we were actually put here on Earth from their genetic material, that we were genetically engineered and put here, and that we were one of their life creations. That was the one major thing that I read. Also, they also claimed that they were the ones that were responsible for putting Jesus Christ on this earth to teach us spirituality and to get us to evolve past
the greed and what the Bible calls sin. I think it's just, I really don't know what it is. I just know that